Bugatti did not send their CEO to film a warning video because they were worried about safety. They sent him because a man in a garage was about to accidentally prove something that Bugatti has spent decades and billions of dollars making sure nobody ever proved. Matt Armstrong was not just rebuilding a wrecked hypercar. He was, without knowing it, walking directly toward the most sensitive piece of information in Bugatti's entire brand architecture. And the moment that airbag slid into place, the moment a component sourced from an Audi A3, a car you can lease for $400 a month, fit perfectly inside a $2.5 million Chiron Pur Sport.
But the best way to find out now is to see whether it fits in place. And it does. The Audi A3 airbag works in a Bugatti. Whether it was an Audi A3 airbag in there in the first place, I'll leave you guys to make.
Everything Bugatti has ever charged for, everything they have ever claimed to justify their pricing, their exclusivity, their untouchable prestige, became a question instead of a fact. That is what Mate Rimac was actually trying to stop. Before we get to the airbag, understand what Bugatti is selling. They are not selling horsepower. They are not selling speed. Other manufacturers sell those things. Bugatti is selling the idea that every single component inside one of their cars exists in a universe separate from everything else on the road. They are selling inaccessibility. They are selling the fantasy that the engineering inside a Chiron is so bespoke, so exclusive, so categorically different from mass production that no price is too high, no barrier too extreme, no restriction too aggressive. That fantasy is the product. The car is just the delivery mechanism. So when Matt Armstrong started publicly documenting his Chiron rebuild, Bugatti did not see a YouTube channel. They saw a detonator. The CEO warning came first. A carefully produced video, Rimac himself on camera, framed around concern. But that framing collapses the moment you ask one question. If Bugatti's concern was genuinely about safety, why was the response a public video designed to discourage the project rather than a private offer of support or technical guidance? Manufacturers who care about safety will help you with parts, but what followed the video was not safety infrastructure. It was a supply chain blockade. Parts that Matt needed, components that any legitimate repair operation should have been able to source, became unavailable. Dealerships that would normally facilitate parts requests went silent. The official Bugatti network, the very system that exists to service these cars in theory, closed around the rebuild like a fist. Not because the parts were dangerous, because the parts were traceable. And traceable parts lead to part numbers. And part numbers lead to the exact discovery Bugatti needed to prevent. The airbag. When Matt finally got his hands on the airbag components and started fitting them, something happened that completely breaks Bugatti's entire illusion. They didn't just sort of fit. They fit perfectly. No trimming, no custom brackets, no specialist workaround, just straight, factory-level fitment. The kind of fit you only get when parts share the same origin, because they do. These weren't exotic, one-off hypercar components. They came from an Audi A3, a mass-produced car built for everyday people. Same spec, same design, same supply chain, and suddenly, the narrative starts to fall apart. Volkswagen Group was never building these cars in isolation. It operates as a platform architecture. Platforms share. That is the entire economic logic of building a conglomerate. You engineer a component once and deploy it across your portfolio at different price points with different branding. This is not a scandal unique to Bugatti. It is standard industry practice. But the rest of the industry does not charge $2.5 million and then tell you the car is untouchable by anyone outside their authorized network because of its extraordinary engineering exclusivity. Bugatti does. And that is the specific contradiction that a fitted airbag from an A3 makes impossible to ignore. Think about what that part number represents. It is not just a cross-reference in a parts database. It is a direct line connecting the most expensive production car ever built to the Volkswagen Group supply chain that also services family hatchbacks. It means that somewhere in a warehouse, the same bin that holds airbag components for a $30,000 car also holds components compatible with a $2.5 million Chiron. It means that Bugatti's engineering exclusivity, the core of their pricing justification, is in part a brand construct rather than a technical reality. And the moment that is demonstrated publicly, on camera, by an independent builder working out of his own garage with no manufacturer support, The justification for every restriction, every lockout, every refusal to provide parts or documentation starts to look less like safety policy and more like brand protection dressed up as safety policy. That distinction matters more than it might seem. Because if Bugatti is restricting access to protect genuine engineering complexity, then their behavior is aggressive but defensible. But if Bugatti is restricting access to prevent the public documentation of component sharing that would erode their pricing narrative, then what they are doing is using the language of safety to execute a strategy of information control. Those are two completely different things. And the airbag fitment tips the balance decisively toward the second interpretation. Matt's response to the blockade was not to stop, it was to root around it. Independent sourcing. Cross-referencing part numbers through Volkswagen Group subsidiaries. Finding suppliers who did not know or did not care that the destination was a Bugatti rebuild. Each workaround was, on its own, just a practical solution to a supply problem. Together they became something more. They became a live demonstration that the wall Bugatti had built around its service ecosystem was not technical, it was political. The parts existed, they were accessible, they were compatible. The only thing preventing their use was Bugatti's insistence that they should not be used. An insistence that had no engineering basis and every brand protection basis. This is not a story that only applies to Bugatti. Every major luxury manufacturer operates some version of this structure. Ferrari locks diagnostic access behind proprietary tools and threatens warranty voids for unauthorized repair. Lamborghini controls service documentation in ways that make independent work functionally impossible. The right to repair is not just a consumer rights question. It is a question about what manufacturers are actually protecting when they lock their ecosystems, genuine safety and complexity, or the economic moat that dependency creates. The answer, when you follow the parts, is almost always both. But the ratio matters. And in Bugatti's case, the airbag makes the ratio visible. What changed when Matt documented this publicly is the information environment around these cars. Before, Bugatti's exclusivity claims existed in a space where almost nobody had the access, the resources, or the recklessness to test them. The cars were too rare, too expensive, too complex. The manufacturers counted on that. They built their narratives inside a vacuum. But a Salvage title, Chiron Pur Sport, and a YouTube channel with millions of subscribers punctured that vacuum. The process became transparent. The part numbers became public. The fitment became documented. And once something is documented at that scale, it cannot be undocumented. Bugatti knows this. The escalating pressure, the CEO video, the parts blockade, the dealer network closure, was not a reaction to what Matt had already proven. It was a preemptive attempt to prevent what he was about to prove. They moved early because they understood the trajectory. A completed rebuild, functional, safe, built with sourced components that fit without modification, would be the most expensive counterargument to their brand narrative ever produced. Not a journalist's exposé, not a regulatory investigation, a working car, proof of concept at $2.5 million. That car is not finished yet. The rebuild is ongoing. The documentation continues. And every part that fits, every cross-reference that resolves, every workaround that succeeds, adds another layer to an argument that Bugatti cannot respond to with a press release or a CEO video. They can only respond to it by completing the ecosystem lockout before the car is done, cutting off the remaining parts Matt needs, making the final stages of the rebuild impossible through attrition rather than argument. Whether they can do that before Matt finds another route around the wall is the only question that matters now.